You know, every now and then in football, a story comes along that's so unbelievable it feels like it's straight out of a movie. A team that reaches for the stars, but maybe flies a little too close to the sun. Well, today we're talking about one of those clubs. This is the wild story of Östersunds FK. So this is the crest we're talking about, Östersunds FK, or OFK for short. And believe me, for a little while, this small club from the middle of Sweden wasn't just another team. They were the story. They captured everyone's imagination and became absolute giant killers. All right, so let's just get right to the heart of it because this is the question that just blows my mind. How on earth does a team from the fourth tier end up beating a European giant like Arsenal in their own stadium? I mean, seriously, how does that happen? To even begin to unpack that, we have to wind the clock back to their miracle season. Okay, let's start at the absolute peak of their powers. We're talking about their incredible run in the 2017-18 Europa League. This is really where the whole world sat up and took notice. Now, just getting to the group stage was a huge deal. They had to go through this gauntlet of really tough qualifying rounds. And look at who they beat. They knocked out Galatasaray, a massive Turkish club, and then PAK from Greece. I mean, for a club the size of Östersund, just doing that was a monumental achievement. But you know what? They weren't done. They get into the group stage with big names like Athletic Bilbao and Hertha Berlin, and they finished second. This was, well, it was literally historic. No Swedish club had ever gotten out of a Europa League group before. They were charting completely new territory. So what's their reward for all this? A showdown with Premier League giants Arsenal. Talk about a baptism of fire. The first leg at home, it was a bit of a reality check. They lost 3-0. And you'd think, okay, well, the dream's over. But then they went to London for the second leg. They walked into Arsenal Stadium and they won. 2-1. Just let that sink in. Yeah, okay, they lost the tie overall on aggregate, but who cares? They had done something absolutely unthinkable. It's like they lost the war, but they won the single most famous battle. That night in London, that put them in the history books forever. So all of this begs the question, who are these guys? Where did this club come from? Because to really get how big of a miracle this was, you have to see where it all started. See, Östersunds FK isn't one of those clubs with, 100 years of history. Not at all. They were only formed back in 1996, when a bunch of smaller local clubs decided to merge together. It was a brand new project, really, with a pretty straightforward goal in mind. And that was it. The big ambition wasn't to take on Arsenal or win European trophies. Nope. It was just to create a solid, stable club that could hang around in the top two leagues in Sweden. A pretty modest dream, but a really important one for that part of the country. So for years, that's what they did. They kind of bounced around the lower leagues. And then one man arrived. And his arrival didn't just change things, it sparked a full-blown revolution. Okay, so get this. In 2010, the club hits absolute rock bottom. They get relegated all the way down to the fourth tier. And from this low point, they make a really unconventional hire. They bring in this pretty much unknown English manager, a guy named Graham Potter. At the time, he was coaching at a university. Not exactly a big name. And wow, just look at the impact he had. This timeline says it all. A promotion in 2011. Another one right after, in 2012. And by 2015, we're talking just 4 years after he took over in the fourth division, they were in the Allsvenskan, the top league in Sweden for the very first time. It was just meteoric. So what's this big number one all about? Well, that represents their first ever major trophy. In 2017, they won the Svenska Cupen, the Swedish Cup. And that single victory, that was the golden ticket. That's what unlocked the door to that whole European adventure we were just talking about. So they'd done it. They'd reached the very top. They'd beaten Arsenal in their own backyard. It was perfect. But the fall was coming. And when it came, it was fast and it was brutal. Get this. Just 2 months after that incredible night in London, the whole thing imploded. The club's chairman, Daniel Keinberg, the guy who was the architect of this whole project, was taken into custody. The charges? Serious fraud and major accounting violations. So what was going on? Well, the allegations were that there was this whole scheme with fake invoices, funneling money through different companies that were tied into the club's sponsorship deals.
Basically, the very financial foundation of their incredible success story was suddenly looking like it was built on a lie. So naturally, with the club completely wrapped up in this scandal, the man behind all their success on the field, Graham Potter, he was out. He left to go manage Swansea City, and boom, just like that, the fairy tale was over.
And the fallout? Well, it was absolutely devastating. I mean, look at this comparison. It tells you everything you need to know. In 2018, they're taking on Europe's best. Fast forward to 2021, and with all their leadership gone, they're relegated from the top league. The whole thing had completely come apart. So, after a rise that high and a fall that hard, what's even left? What remains of Östersund and this absolutely crazy story?
Well, today you'll find Östersund back in the second division, the Superettan. The giant killing days are long gone. Now they're just a club fighting to stay stable, trying to figure out how to live in the shadow of their own incredible, unbelievable past.
And I guess that leaves us with the big question, right? How do we look back on this story? Was it this beautiful dream that showed us anything is possible in football? Or was it just a dark cautionary tale about ambition, about flying too close to the sun? Maybe the truth is it's a little bit of both.